Hiya, folks. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Magic Key Chats podcast. To all who come to these happy chats, welcome. I'm your host, Ryan.
And I'm Amanda.
And today we're going to talk about our Disney characters and the interactions we have with them. To start off, one of the reasons why Disneyland is still far better than Disney World, is that Disney characters are walking around Disneyland. Where if you go to Disney World, they are still in their own little sections away from the folks. So you will not see Disney characters walking around. And I'm sure so many people who go to Disneyland are just happy about that.
I'm going to disagree.
What's that?
I interacted with princesses at the carousel at Disney World.
But they're not walking around openly.
They were at the carousel.
At the carousel, but I mean, like, they're not roaming the park.
I had pictures with them.
In the carousel area.
Yeah, because it was like the end of the night, and apparently that's a thing that they do.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you know that? That's a fun fact that I learned. My friend who is a pass holder at Disney World is like, oh, sometimes if you're lucky, the princesses will come at the end of the night and like ride the carousel and like interact with like the kids and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I'm game. I go, first of all, carousel, that's my go-to. So let's go. And then they were like, the princesses were just like roaming around interacting. So they were interacting, but also I don't avidly go to Disney World enough to know if it's the culture. Because that's one thing I'll say that I noticed if we're comparing Disneyland to Disney World is the idea of like engagement, entertainment, interaction. Not that there wasn't stuff that's like planned and on the schedule, but at Disneyland, it feels more like it's just part of the way things work versus like a scheduled thing. Whereas I didn't feel that at Disney World, Magic Kingdom specifically, in the same way. And I would say in the sense of like character interactions. But again, like I've only been 2 times, so I don't know if that's a normal thing or if I missed it, or I'm trying to do like all these other things, like go on all these rides that I maybe don't know. So that's where you could probably offer that insight on like what the culture of character interactions are Disneyland versus Disney World.
Yeah, so I'm actually glad you brought this up, because a friend of mine and I actually were talking about this today, thinking about this topic. Was back in the day, you used to have like the schedule of when the characters, where they would be, how they would be, where it's kind of a little bit more randomized now. Like you just kind of luck into it. Even with the app capability we have now, like you don't really see Mickey Mouse is going to be at this location. It's very random, and I wonder if it's somewhat intentional, as some of the incidents we've seen with members going to the park, people going to the park, and the interaction with the characters. So maybe they don't want to jeopardize the folks under the suit. But I do believe at Disney World, yeah, it's more planned, it's scheduled. You have an idea somebody's going to be where, and I think like just the capacity of the crowd. So it is probably a structure, like a reason why they do it that way. And then you get a little bit more intimate with the Disneyland side of it, because I'm not big on the character, and like I don't go out of my way to go see characters. Like if I do see Mickey Mouse or Goofy or somebody rolling around, like I'm not going to go wait in line to go get a photo with them. Just me personally.
I'm not going to wait in line for a character visit, but I like the idea of the characters roaming around the park and interacting.
Yeah.
I've had some cool character interactions, like unintentionally. I love to spend time at the wishing well on the side of Sleeping Beauty's castle. And if you spend enough time there, a lot of times the evil queen passes by there. She's actually the character I've seen the most roaming around the park, usually in Fantasyland. So if you're a big fan of the evil queen, and I will say that anytime that anyone's playing the evil queen when they're walking around, it is just phenomenal job. No joke. I'm taking a selfie and she like literally comes. I have this recorded because I was like making a snap or like an Instagram video on my story or something like that. And she's literally like behind me and comes up and like says something to me like, oh, I'm the fairest one of all, or like, oh, I have a double chin, and there's something like that. And it was just so funny. And that's not the only interaction I've had with her. She's interacted with me multiple times, like not on the same day, just because I happen to be in the general vicinity of like when she's coming by. And I've seen her like interacting with like little kids, especially. There's a lot of kids that dress up like Snow White from like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, and she'll like walk with them. That's probably the one of the funnest interactions. But when they're just roaming around, and then sometimes there's characters who are like in a certain area, like, and kids line up to take pictures and stuff like that. So I think that's really cool. So, I mean, more so, I wanted to get into the whole idea and conversation about character interactions, not because like I like to go and like take a picture, but I think it's one of those things that adds to the Disney magic of like being part of the story.
Yeah. Obviously, you liked seeing that more human actors, like the princesses, the evil queen. I think I've seen her maybe once. Also, like it does even for me walking around, like when I see like a random character, like you usually see like the Legacy Six, the Mickeys, the Donalds, Goofies, and so on and so forth. But when you see like the random out of the blue,
Who's random and out of the blue to you?
there was one, it was like a Disney Channel one, very odd at California Adventure, I think a couple weeks ago. Like
Max?
no, okay. As a Goofy movie fan, when I see Max,
Over the fisherman's over the wharf? Isn't that the funnest ever? Have you seen him there before?
it wasn't there. What I saw, it was at the DVC night, and they actually did like the whole dance with Powerline Max and Powerline Goofy at the little backstage area. And the only time I've ever gotten in line for a character, and the only photo I've taken as a grown man, was getting in line for Powerline Max, and I thought it was the coolest. Also, I think one of the coolest now, which I will be trying to get in line for, is Baymax at the new San Francisco area. Like, I just want to go up to him and just poke him and do the blah la 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 and that all that stuff. So, like, I like the movie. I'm not obsessed with it, but I just think that's like the funniest interaction is just you see this big old balloon dude, Michelin man looking Baymax. And you can now get a photo with him in San Francisco. It was like a Disney Channel thing from it was either Disney Channel or maybe it was actually no, it might have been from the Element movie.
I haven't seen that one.
Now I remember, I think it was that because it was just somebody I would have never expected that they had, and then they popped up, and I'm like, out of the blue. What I will say, what I have wanted to say all day though on this is they need Stitch in the parks.
They've had Stitch in the parks before.
They have had him.
You just weren't there.
So right, like regularly, okay, as you could see, at least for those who see the recording. If you can't see the recording, actually just listening, I love Stitch. He's hanging on my little boom here. I rock the Stitch gear, but we see so much Stitch merchandise
Everywhere. It's so annoying.
except there's no ride. One, and the only place I think now there's only I think two places now you can see the Stitch character like on a regular basis. It's one at the Olani, and I think it used to be at the Polynesian in Disney World, and I don't even think you can see him regularly there anymore. And Stitch is a loved character, not just by me. I have other folks that agree with me. He needs more representation. Like I will tell you, I think so many kids, I think, well, maybe little kids, if they've never seen Lilo and Stitch,
I'll agree though, like it's a fun character interaction because isn't that also the point? The point is a character interaction. Like he's a fun character.
he can go crazy. Yeah.
If you're the cast member who's Stitch, right? Like you can like be mischievous.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun character interaction. Like especially like at somewhere like DCA, which I don't think there's as many characters walking around in DCA, which makes sense too because we've it's a different kind of park. And that's kind of what I want to get into about this because I don't think there's an argument of should you have character interactions or not. Like that's a given. Like it's part of the Disney experience, but more so how that's evolved and changed. And I've seen a big difference post COVID that we've talked about staffing being an issue. I think the dynamic of I went to the parks very shortly after they opened after COVID. The characters were still like behind like a rope and like you could like kind of take a picture like right on the rope, like they were there.
Yeah, the social distancing.
So you still like could do that, but it wasn't the same like hugging Minnie Mouse and stuff like which I'm not I don't feel bad for me or any other adult by the way. Okay? But the kids who like truly believe this is Mickey Mouse, I do want to make that distinction. It's really cool for me like as an adult to see how the characters are and it's fun when the evil queen interacts with you. It's like, okay, I clearly know that that's a cast member like in character and that's what makes it really fun as an adult but then there's also that other side of being very magical for the kids because they truly most of them like truly believe like this is the like character out of the TV. This is actually the evil queen. This is actually Peter Pan. That's actually Cruella. Like this is actually Goofy, which I think is so cool. And I mean, we could talk too because like I mean, we'll get into it in a second about like what the requirements are when you're playing these characters to like make sure you don't taint that magic, which I also think is really fun. But let's continue on our rant about why Stitch should be added to the parks more regularly.
And like you said, like fun characters too.
Chip and Dale are fun.
Chip and Dale Hurley.
They're kind of mischievous. I've seen them be mischievous.
You know who's also like an oddly fun one? I've seen clips of it lately. Was Eeyore. Everybody is like out by Winnie the Pooh, and then you just have Eeyore over in the corner. He's just kind of like, oh, woe is me type, like without saying words, and the person under the suit is just portraying
The demeanor, yeah.
yeah, the demeanor.
I don't know that I've seen. I feel like one time I was passing by and I saw from afar there was Eeyore. I know I've Peter Pan and Wendy.
Mhm.
I've seen Geppetto and Pinocchio outside the parade because there is also certain characters you'll see during certain parades, which I think like it's easy to have them around. Princesses you don't see roaming around often because they have that royal hall where they interchange what princesses are there and you like wait to see the princesses, which I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing because you have the same thing in Toontown where you have Mickey and Minnie's house and you go in and you meet Minnie and Mickey in there. So I think that's cool. Which, by the way, in case you didn't know, disclaimer: don't let your children hear this. So, the rule in Disneyland, why are you covering your ears?
Child at heart.
The rule, am I gonna spoil something for you? Oh, I don't wanna break your heart.
I don't even know where you're going this, so I'm waiting for it. So let's yeah.
The rule is no character can be seen in 2 places at any Disney park
Oh, yeah.
because you don't wanna ruin the magic of why are there 2 Mickey Mouses? However, inside of Mickey's house, there are 2 Mickey Mouses to, like, make sure that the crowd goes really quickly. So there's 2 separate rooms, and the rooms are complete like, you go into another room before you go into the room or something. Like, the way that there's space is that you never see the other room, so you never know there's another Mickey Mouse. But there's actually 2 different people playing like, being Mickey Mouse. And also, when Mickey's at his house and, like, taking visitors, there is no Mickey out in the park because you don't wanna ruin the magic of I just saw Mickey at his house, why is he in the parade? I don't know if they're still, like, very strict on that stuff, but I know that that's, like, one of the, like, the Disney magic rules, right? Is, like, no character can be seen because it's not just like, "Oh, it's fun to have characters roaming around," but it's not to say it's giving the illusion. It's creating that magic of saying, "This is this one character and this one entity." But, yeah, there are 2 Mickey Mouses in the house, but you don't know it because you can't ruin the Disney magic that there's another Mickey Mouse.
That rule I did know. I did not know that there was 2 in the house, so surprise for me.
Yeah. My friend was like, "Hey," she's like, "Pay attention when that door opens and try to like sneak a peek and whatever." And kind of like shifted a little bit and saw it. This was a couple years ago that she told me this. I don't know if they still do it. They might, but I mean, it makes sense, right? Because you have this long line of kids wanting to see Mickey. I don't know if it's the same for Minnie because I've never visited her at her house, but I have visited Mickey at his house. Actually, when I visited Mickey at his house, Minnie was there. So
Oh, okay. One thing I loved when they reopened Toontown was the fact that they had the characters walking around. I don't know if I ever saw Mickey or Minnie. I think the whole point was like you said, like they're in the house there and the illusion and all that. But like seeing just the characters walking around, I think even some of them would actually go play with the kids up in like the play area.
yeah, that play area. Yeah.
I know they're kind of refurbishing it, but like another
Was Roger Rabbit there?
Roger Rabbit wasn't there, but you know who was a character I don't think I've ever seen that was there was both Pete and Clarabelle. I maybe seen her when I was like young.
I've seen Clarabelle at a parade.
Yeah, but I've never seen her like out walking around. But like same thing with like Peg Leg Pete walking around. I was like, whoa.
I've never seen him. I mean, I don't know that I pay attention enough to see many characters outside like the parade or like if I'm walking through Fantasyland, then like there's usually some character.
Yeah.
I think I might have seen a Flynn Rider, but I wasn't sure if it was someone dressed in cosplay as Flynn Rider, if it was the Disney Flynn Rider. Because I'll be honest, there are some people's cosplay that's so good. Like if you go to, especially if you're in like in Galaxy's Edge, and there's people like dressed like Star Wars character. Their cosplay is so good that you don't know if it's like a real, if it's cosplay or it's like an actual character. Didn't that happen to you though? Like, did you have an interaction where you didn't know if it was a person or if it was a character?
It was the girl from the Boba Fett show. When I was in Galaxy's Edge, that was interrogating me, and I was under the impression that it was just some random Joe Schmo. But I do know there is a rule as far as like you cannot, aside from Halloween time, like when you're there for like costume events, you cannot dress.
Yeah, it's illegal.
Yeah,
It's Disney illegal.
I'm gonna go off the assumption that they were following the rules, and that was Flynn Rider. There's the magic. You saw Flynn Rider.
I've watched Tangled like way too many times.
Oh, my son was obsessed with that one, so I think I got half of it.
It's the only good modern princess movie. I said what I said.
Modern princess. Are we not? Is Moana considered a princess? I think she's considered a princess.
I mean, I guess maybe, but I thought it was an okay movie.
I love Moana. I like seeing Moana walk out.
It was a good movie, but it's not like a classic princess movie. Like if we're talking about like the classic princess movies,
Oh,
the only one that fits the same genre of fairy tale princess movies.
Brothers Grimm type thing.
All the rest of them, you're trying too hard.
Yeah. I think my favorite one too, like at Disney World, that I wish that they had at Disneyland as well, is Gaston.
Yeah. No, they do. I've seen Gaston.
What? Like not outside of a parade?
Yeah.
Not the parade. Okay. Ah, that say,
I saw him the last time I was there, actually, and I was like, "Oh, I don't really see you very often." Yeah, I was on Fantasyland.
I'm gonna find you guys.
Okay, so that's a good point to make. That now they're like, "Oh, I wish they had this character." Is well, and they have them at the like the fantasy, the Royal Theater too when they do the Beauty and the Beast show. Part of it's that consistency and like you don't know what character, but that's also part of the nice thing. Oh, what characters am I going to see? Again, it's a pre-COVID versus post-COVID world where you have less cast members, your regulations are different. Like, I don't know the reasons, but there's definitely less like characters walking around. I think it'd be cool to have characters walking around like all the time, like multiple characters in different areas, bringing in new characters at different points. And honestly, like you never know what you're going to get. And, you know, no one's going every, some people might be going every day. I'm not going every day. You're going like every other day. And then you have like those families who are going like once in their life. So yeah, it'd be nice to see like your favorite character in an ideal world, you'll have like every character there. So what I've noticed is that earlier in the day at Disneyland, earlier in the day in Fantasyland, you'll see characters walking around earlier in the day. Later in the day, you don't really see many. Part of it is because a lot of them are in the parade. So they can't be like roaming around and in the parade. The peak is from like park open to like about 2 o'clock in Fantasyland that like you have your peak of like kids and then till they're just kind of losing it. That's usually the busiest time in Fantasyland, which is when you'll see most of the characters. And then I think once parades hit, I don't know that I've seen many characters like after parade time.
No, yeah, because I think going kind of back to the point of post 2020, like still struggling to get folks hired, trained, and so on and so forth. Because the costume characters, I don't know if you know like the tiers of like there's like a whole ranking system on like it's I don't want to say it's like high schooly, but like the costume characters are treated like crap in comparison to the Disney princess. Like the princesses obviously are the top tier.
Ah,
All the restrictions they have and things like that. Of course they would be. Your Disney princess, but also like a lot of the stuff like they have to do a certain gym regimen. They cannot change their anything about them.
yeah, they have to learn how to do the makeup. They have to do their makeup and they have to learn. This is what I've heard. This is what I heard from other people who work possibly cast members. They have, like, very strict rules, like, number 1, if you ever played a character, you're not allowed to say who you played ever,
Mhm.
even if you don't play them anymore. Yeah, I was a cast member, but I can't tell you what kind of cast member I was. Like, they can't tell you if they were a character, they can't tell you if they worked a ride, like, they're not allowed to tell you anything, especially if they're a performer, and if they did play, like, a princess or a character, they cannot tell you. I heard that if you play a princess, you have to learn how to do that princess's makeup, like, exactly. There's, like, a certain, like, tutorial so you look like the princess. I heard I don't know if this is a rule anymore. This was years ago that I heard this from someone who used to work there, is that it was like you could only be the character for like 45 minutes or an hour at a time before you had to go and take a break or like shift out with somebody else because they didn't want people to get like irritated with the kids or like lose because it's like you had to be in character and like be that princess like the entire time. So like it was only a very short period of time, which is why I don't see them out for like super long periods of time and that they took a certain route because shift was over and they had to take a certain route and they weren't allowed to like interact with anyone on their way back.
Yeah,
That's what I heard. I don't know if any of this is true. So if someone wants to like give us 411,
it is true because I've seen the whole thing on the characters themselves. And one thing that noted was they all share the same suit for a long period of time. Oh, you're gonna get grossed.
no, ew. Don't gross out our list.
It's a fun fact, but also they had to share the same underwear.
Ew.
There is a certain undergarment they had to wear because they didn't want you wearing your own underwear so it doesn't show lines in the costume. And for the longest time, Disney made them basically share that same underwear.
There's no way. That's disgusting.
It is true.
I hope that's not true anymore.
Oh no, it's not true anymore. Well, to a sense,
They're not sharing underwear.
but now they're allowed to wash it at home. Like they get they get issued the underwear and they're allowed to wash it at home. Because a while it was they had this. It's still the same underwear, but they had to leave it and then hope the company washed the underwear for the next employee. And then what they're like, people were getting all sorts of health related issues. I won't go too into the details of it. I think we can use our imaginations.
I don't wanna use my imagination at all. I wanna forget I ever heard this.
It is hot in both Southern California and Florida, and again, like think about like the Beast outfit. I heard is the one that all cast members hate wearing this one because again, it's all the hair.
That's why you don't see the beast roaming around.
Yes, it's all the hair.
Oh, gross.
Next time you see your kids hug Beast, I recommend, maybe going back to the room and getting a shower or something because
Ew. Stop freaking people out. Well, I mean, listen, the gross part's inside the costume for the most part.
yes,
We're just gonna go there. So you can still let your kids hug Mickey Mouse.
yes, there is a grooming technique they do to make sure that obviously you want to make sure the outside of the costume looks pristine at all times. So they do groom up the outside of the costume. I don't know what those techniques are now. This was a video about the characters, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years ago.
That's a long time ago, but that's still gross to know. Isn't there a rule that you have to be a certain height to play Mickey Mouse?
Yes, mostly it's played by females too.
Yes, I've heard that.
There's not a lot of guys who can fit the Mickey mini suits. So like all the shorter suits are usually played by female.
They're usually shorter.
It's like 4'9", I think, and below or something like that. It's not very tall.
4'9"?
Yeah.
Even I'm not 4'9".
It's very small.
I'm 5'1 3/4".
Don't quote me on that height. I'm just shooting that off the top. Maybe it's 5'2".
It might be. Because then that would mean I'm taller than Mickey Mouse.
Well, my friend who is I think he's 5'3", even he didn't qualify for any of those. Not at all. And we were kind of shocked.
I would not want to play Mickey Mouse though.
No, oh no. Like it's funny because as a kid, I was like, one day I want to grow up and be the guy in the Mickey Mouse suit. And then I grew up and I'm like, hey, no.
You're like, I have to share underwear, never mind.
This was even before knowing all that information too.
I think I would want to play a princess except for the fact that I'd have to do my makeup.
I feel bad for them too because like I don't know how much you know about like with NFL cheerleaders and like how strict regimens they have. Multiply that by maybe 20.
Yes, I'm very well aware of that.
For our listeners who are aware of like anybody in like a performance type thing where I've heard stories where like girls gain 10 pounds and then they have 30 days to lose it. They can't work during that time. And if they don't lose it and get back into figure, then they're released or relieved.
This is why I'm not in Hollywood.
That's why.
A couple other reasons, but that's one. The mentality that creates that result is what is the reason.
Yeah. It looks all glamorous. And then you hear about the stories inside Hollywood and you're like, oh, okay.
Anything that looks glamorous on the outside is not.
Another thing I wanted to ask, I don't think it fits for the Disney parks, but I want your thought and opinion on it because I don't know if you've seen a lot of what Universal has done with some of their character interactions.
Ooh, controversy.
Like they have the dinosaur from Jurassic Park, like the one I was watching yesterday, like they had Megatron where, I mean, this thing is like, I don't know if it's a guy in a suit, but the thing is like at least 8 feet tall and it has like the voice changer. So it sounds like Megatron. I would say their character interactions are definitely built for teenagers and up. Like during Christmas time, they have the Grinch that you can go up and walk around and
Yeah. I've seen that. I mean, I haven't been there, but I've seen like videos.
yeah, a lot of that is like kind of same realm where their character interactions are definitely more built toward an adult and teenage audience. Yeah, like they'll joke around with them and they'll be, I don't want to say rude. It's an intentional but a funny rude because like Megatron, he's an evil he's a Decepticon evil. So like when he's interacting with somebody who's, in line or like visiting with them, like he's trying to be mean to them. Not something you would ever expect from a Disney park.
Well, unless you're in Rise of the Resistance, or you're in Galaxy's Edge and the Stormtroopers.
Oh, that is okay. That's what I wasn't thinking of. Like we're talking about with the Stormtroopers. So yeah, those are a little bit more adulty. Although the Stormtroopers can be nice. I mean, they're good with kids.
They're good with kids, but like they're not like pushing you around, but they're like, they're in character. Like the Evil Queen is in character. You don't see many villains walking around unless it's like Halloween time. You might see some more. Or you see Cruella. Cruella makes comments and stuff like that.
They're not mean. They're like sassy.
I guess in a more friendly way.
Yeah, they're like sassy. It's not mean. It's sassy.
There's no place in Disneyland for people to be mean.
Yeah.
What's your question?
My question is like seeing more realistic, other than like the people themselves, not like the Flynn Riders, Rapunzel and them, not the princesses, like actual people characters, but some of the more animated side of it. Because again, Decepticons, the dinosaur is animated. I don't know what the Disney equivalent of this might be.
They're all animated.
Okay, the animated ones, but you can make them people. Like Rapunzel, you can actually make a person. But like, for example, what's his name? Maui. Like if we had like a Maui,
There's a Maui suit.
the Maui suit is just the suit. He's not interacting, he's not talking with you,
There's the guy that's Maui in the parade.
but he's just dancing around. But saying like bringing that where again Maui can be a little bit sassy and mean in the movie. Okay, let me roll it back.
Yes, roll it back. I don't know what you're asking.
We have the technology now, let's say for like my buddy Stitch here, where we can build more of a like I mean, the thing would actually look like Stitch, and let's say it looks like whatever it's going to look like in the live action movie.
Okay, hang on, hang on. Okay, let's point of reference because maybe I'm not fully understanding. So you're seeing it a Universal. There are things like a dinosaur that are now in existence as an interaction.
Yes,
Is it a person in a costume? Is it like how you have Goofy in a costume? Is it like actual animatronic dinosaur that's interacting with you? What are we talking about?
it is more like an actual animatronic that is interacting with you.
Nope, robots are gonna take over the world.
It's not like a fuzzy costume. It's an actual animatronic. Like you actually, I've not been to Universal, but the videos and stuff I've seen, like it looks real.
I've seen R2D2.
But I mean, beep boop, beep boop, beep boop. You know what I mean?
Still comes and nudges you.
It's adorable, isn't it? That was so great. I loved it.
That's the equivalent in Disney terms. I don't know, like, what other equivalent you're gonna think of that needs to be an animatronic.
Let's get a more realistic Stitch walking around, like actually walking around. Like they're kind of working on that with.
What wrong with the Stitch in the Stitch costume?
That's kind of where I'm getting with this. Is there any reason why you think Disney could move to something where it's less of like a person in a costume, and now you have a live Stitch animatronic walking around and interacting with you instead?
'Cause it's not a person! Absolutely not! No! Absolutely not. Like, listen, there's a time and place where if it's an animatronic thing, like R2D2 is like literally animatronic. That makes sense to have an animatronic. Like, you're not gonna put a person in R2D2. I mean, you might be able to, but like, you wouldn't do that. You don't need to do that. And I'm sure there's other characters I'm not thinking of that it might make sense to do. Some kind of like rendition, especially if you're talking like Disney World parks where there are more of an eclectic opportunity to do that, like in Epcot and things like that. Sure, not against it. But at Disneyland, like Magic Kingdom, like where it's like the actual characters, like the whole magic of character interactions is that it is another human being consciously saying, I am bringing this character to life and interacting with this child and being able to act quickly. And I don't care how much AI you want to use, you cannot replace a human hugging you to a robot hugging you. And I don't care who wants to argue with me. So, no.
So I think that actually that I just thinking this in my head right now because I forgot about it. I think the closest thing Disneyland does have, technically California Adventure, that they have closest to this is Lightning McQueen and Mater walk in Cars Land.
Yeah, because it's a car.
You can't hug a car, but that's like the closest equivalent.
You can. You can like hug it. I hug my car all the time. What are you talking about? I give my car a little love tip every time I come home from a long trip. And I go through the garage. I like give my car some love.
Okay, and like more characters that could add into California, like a Wally. You got Wally walk around, where Wally will be roaming around as like a basically more of an animatronic, not a person.
Yes, like I said, things that make sense can make an animatronic. Like it would probably be pretty difficult to put a person in like it would be weird because Wally isn't that big.
Right?
Like you would expect him to be like a piece of technology. That makes sense.
Stitch is not that big.
Stitch is an animal.
He's so cute and fluffy.
Yeah, and you wanna put him into technology? Who's gonna hug a animatronic Stitch and love it?
They have Donkey from Shrek at Universal, and he talks and he interacts.
We're not talking about Universal.
But that's an animal.
They can do whatever they want.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I already got your answer on this. Is it's no room for it.
That was your question. Your question was, should they do what Universal is doing? And my answer is absolutely not, unless it makes sense.
Is there room for it? Was said I want more Stitch in the park, as opposed to having the person in the costume. If they could make an animatronic Stitch that literally walks around the park, looks like the height and everything, can interact with the kids, and actually look more lifelike like Stitch.
No.
I think everybody knows that Stitch is not 5'7".
And Mickey Mouse is?
My point. Could we get rid of the actual characters? Yeah.
No. Listen, on the principle of what you just said about I want more Stitch in the park, and if they can't hire more people, then let's make it an animatronic. My answer is absolutely not.
Okay.
But if you're like, hey, it'd be cool to have a Wally, and could they use that type of animatronic technological, like robot technology to make one? Well, sure, that makes sense. But no,
When you think Disney character, you think of full-size human being.
you think of a human being portraying a character and letting little kids hug them and interacting with them and getting excited. Minnie Mouse got excited because I was wearing my Halloween Minnie Mickey, like I had Minnie and Mickey pumpkins all over like my spirit jersey for Halloween. And Minnie Mouse like pointed at it and was like, "Oh, that's me," like, and got really excited. And it's like, and I'm not a child, okay? Like I know this is a person, but like that's what's so magical is that they're interacting, they're noticing, they're interacting. Someone can sell me on, oh, AI can be trained to do the same thing. It's like, I don't really care. Let's stop stealing humanity out of the world through AI. Like, just no, no, you cannot convince me. Just like you try to convince me about like magic bands. Like, no, there's just no, no.
No, I don't have them on today. Are you good at understanding what they're trying to tell you when they like do the hand gestures and the movements and all that? The person in the costume, like, can you for the most part figure out what you're trying to get?
Yeah, it's kind of obvious, but I don't really I wouldn't say that I interact with them very often. I met up one of my friends and her friend was there and she wanted to take a picture with Minnie, so we were waiting in line. That's the only reason I did the interacted with Minnie in the first place, and it's only the ones that don't talk or the ones inside, like, the suits are the only ones that don't talk.
Yeah, correct.
The other ones talk to you, and I haven't, like, waited in line and, like, interacted much other than one time we went into Mickey's house and we took a picture. You know, I wear my crown, so they, like, point to my crown and then, like, bow to me. Minnie Mouse bowed to me.
Better than what she did to me. So, so the one time I really do like the character interactions is like the character breakfast. For example, Goofy's Kitchen, one of my favorite things to go do, like when I really want to treat myself. And it was the first time I've been to Goofy's Kitchen since I was a young kid. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to go by myself. Fun time. I was hoping, especially after what happened, I was really hoping they would have just left me alone. I got to enjoy it and just enjoy the scenery. I'm at a table all by myself. And here comes Minnie.
Did she sit with you?
She's just pointing at the empty chair, just giving this look of like, "Oh, you're here by yourself?" And then I'm like, yeah." Like she even like was like, "Where's the other person?" Like kind of like the I am terrible with the hand gestures and all that, like trying to like communicate back and forth.
Then all you just go like, "Is this
Yeah. Yeah.
shrug?"
Kind of like gestured. I was like, "You can come sit down with me," and she's like doing like a hand wave, like, "No, I can't do that," and then like walked back, and then came back like 20 minutes later, and still just like repointed at the chair. Was like kind of doing like, "Where's your guest?"
Alone.
So Minnie called me out for eating all alone by myself. And I even think, if I remember right, Chip and Dale were messing with me that too. But like the fact that it was Minnie Mouse, I was like, oh, that hurts. That hurts so much.
Super embarrassing.
But like Mickey Mouse too, the other one, the Storyteller's Cafe, I did that one too, and it was there for birthday. A couple folks were with me there, and Mickey was trying his best to get me to understand like what he was trying to say. I think he was like asking me like, "Oh, how's the food?" I'm not good at reading lips, let alone reading hand gestures. So I say the non-character vocalizations, I am so terrible with it.
Just fake hand gestures like thumbs up or like the shrug or I don't really know. Or like, huh, like things that could literally be the answer to any question. Like a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Like, even if you don't know what they're saying.
I usually try to do that.
But you know what? I bet you a 5-year-old would know exactly what Mickey was saying.
Probably. And so in fairness to the characters, I'm even bad at like small talk communication with people too. So like words, just talking to people alone, that's difficult for me as well.
You don't understand words.
I am socially, like when it's meeting people for the first time, I will totally say it's socially awkward. I'm surprised you didn't even pick up with that, but that also might have been because like when we met, I was with like two friends of mine. But if it was just like me and you there, like I said, yeah, ride things, yeah,
I'm the opposite of socially awkward.
like I'm so in my own head with like thoughts that are going on here that sometimes they don't come out the way I think they should. Go back into conversations, and I'm like, oh, I didn't say what I actually think I meant to say. Like in my head, it sounded right. And then the words just didn't communicate out right, which is surprising that, we're doing a podcast where I need to talk.
So you're not a fan of character interaction?
No, no, I like them.
You get nervous around Minnie Mouse.
Yeah, Minnie Mouse. Mickey Mou like I said, there's certain ones I do love, but, like, if it's just me, I have no reason to go do it. But one thing I do miss about character interactions is, we chimed on this a little bit in conversation the other day, was when I was a kid, the autograph books were such a thing to do, and we would go out of our way to, like, we'd go to the Emporium or the Disney store, like, my brothers and I would each go get, an autograph book, and we try to get as many of those Disney autograph, and we saved those. And like the characters had to know how to sign in the character's name and do that. Like it was such a cool thing to keep. I know the autograph books are there, but I think cell phones are just taken over as like, oh, I got my photo with him, as opposed to the mom lugging around the big Magnavox camera, taking an entire video of your vacation with this 50-pound weight on her shoulder, recording your entire day.
My mom doesn't need to go to Disneyland to do that. My mom used to record literally every single thing with that. I was like, dude, props to this woman who that's commitment to carry that thing like to the park, weird places.
Yep.
But, we have that video, which is cool. I think it's a different society, right? Things we remember growing up, I don't wanna be like, "Oh, simpler times." I feel so old when I talk about, like, generational differences. I'm like, "I'm not that old." Like, "Okay, yes, I am." But, like, because 'cause they are still there, and I do know some people who still, like, get the autograph book, and it's usually people who experience that, they want their kids to experience, so they have the autograph book. I'll say I think there's a couple things with that. So, they do have to memorize the signature, right? They have that memorized. No matter who is playing that character, the signature is gonna look the same, right?
Yes.
Part of that is like, "Oh, this is so cool," and we grew up with that being like, "Oh, this is so cool," but also, like, how many people are using pen and paper these days anyway?
Yeah.
And it could be how it was promoted because I don't know what the advertising was when we were children of, you gotta get this autograph book, and here's just what you do with a character interaction. I think also, like, for some people, it was a challenge, and it was like, "Can I get all these characters?" Like, it's a collection, right? Like a collector's item, and I don't think you have that same culture with kids.
Right. They still have the crush pennies that I know were kind of cool when I was younger. I necessarily didn't do it, but like collection things you can do.
Yeah, people are collecting things on, like, on apps in their phone, like, no one's they're not like, some people still do, but I'm saying, like, this generation of people, like, they're in a virtual world that those tangible things I don't think hold the same meaning to them to where it would elicit that, like, same culture. That just again, doesn't mean there people aren't still doing it. I think it's a beautiful, cute thing.
They have the type of games on the Disney app that like you go looking around for stuff in the park. Like the kids go looking around for stuff in the park utilizing the app.
Ugh.
Like what you were saying though before is like when we were younger, like at Animal Kingdom, one of the things we did at Animal Kingdom is I had Mickey and Minnie's campground, and you would know and go see whatever, like you'd get in line and there'd be like 5 or 6 different characters, maybe even more than that actually, but you can get in each line and get like a character in each section of the campground.
It was like a game though, right, to, like, collect signatures. Can I get a signature from all these different characters? And it was like a game. I don't think that that's the same whether it's Disney doesn't promote it that way, whether it's just a society like, I don't know the reasons other than to say we live in different times, and I hate saying
Yeah, if you're doing it now, it's like the nostalgia for you. Like you want your kids to do that because that's what you did. Yeah.
it's the nostalgia of the parents doing it for the kids more than it is anything else. I had a friend who it's super cute. They got one of those sheets that go inside the water bottle, and they have the characters sign that, so it's, like, inside their kid's water bottle. Yeah, you can, like, make those personalized water bottles.
Oh, okay. That makes I was yeah, sorry, I'm thinking just like random plastic water bottle. Okay. That's good, and it's like a keepsake too.
That's for, like, her younger one, but then and her older one has, like, the metal, like, water bottle and then with a marker and she has all the signatures around there and then, like, Mod Podged it, like, so it, like, didn't get ruined.
So it's a keepsake. That's good. I like that idea.
She had the nostalgia of the signatures of the characters and thought that was a really cool experience for kids, but it's also, like, a tangible thing that they can use versus, like, an autograph book. It's also, like, what are you gonna do with an autograph book?
Yeah.
We did so many stupid things because of the sake of doing things, and like, what am I gonna do with all this? Hoarders. We're all hoarders.
It's a core memory. It's and then when you decide to pick it up out of your storage shelf.
Yeah, the '90s invented the term memorabilia, let's be honest.
Oh, it's so true.
Back to character interactions. Do you have a favorite character interaction? Or is there a character that like you other than Stitch? Is there a character that you wish like that you've never seen that you wish they would have at the parks?
Oh, that I've never seen. Hmm. So we talked about Powerline Max and Goofy.
Well, you saw them.
I know. I want to see Powerline himself. Like, get me Powerline himself.
Dude, such an underrated movie, by the way.
Right? If you grew up in the 90s and you did not watch Goofy Movie and Extremely Goofy Movie, you know what?
We listen to each.
Bring out all the characters. I want to see Bobby, Leaning Tower of Cheesa. I want to see Powerline. I think I have seen Roxanne. I think her and Max are on the Disney Cruise Line.
Okay, well that would make sense.
Yeah, when I was younger, one of the only places you could see Max was in Vero Beach, I think, because we did do Vero Beach when my dad first became a DVC member, and that was like the first time I had ever saw Max. So that's probably my favorite interaction because like we did this thing where you went out at the beach and the kids, it was an egg toss competition that my older brother and I won. So egg toss competition.
Had to throw that in there, huh?
Oh, I had to. Castleman Boys, I think it was 97, 02, one of those years. I'll figure it out for sure. One character that I can think of right now that I want to see is like actual Powerline. And they need to do like some sort of concert show, doing the songs and everything. You got Max, Goofy, and Powerline. Bring that to life for me, and I will upgrade my Disney Pass now. I don't even whatever. Just shut up and take my money. Shut up and take my money. All right. What about you?
I don't know that I have one. I would like to see more Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah.
I've seen Sleeping Beauty though. Like I've seen her a few times because I was with my friend, and actually my friend's the one that wanted to wait in line and take pictures with princesses, and she's like, "Oh, Sleeping Beauty." I was like, "I don't care to take pictures with princess. Like it's just not my thing. Like I love interacting, but I don't need a picture." And then I ended up taking a picture with Sleeping Beauty.
Other characters I could think. So I'm going to say this for a friend of mine.
I figured you'd have an answer to this. That's why I asked you. I was like, I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I got a lot of characters. So on the same with Lilo and Stitch, this one's for a friend of mine. Oddly enough, out of the two characters in Lilo and Stitch, like we argue about this all the time, like who is the main character in Lilo and Stitch? Of course, I think everybody knows my answer. His answer is that Lilo is the main character and that Lilo needs to be a character in this park. Even just thinking that, like, to see like Lilo and Stitch, Lilo would be hard to do. Jumba and Pleakley, if I saw Jumba and Pleakley walking around the park with Stitch, that would be choice.
Here's the important thing to remember is it's character interaction, right? So it's like, are they interactive enough of a character? Is there enough for someone to work with that like kids would get so excited and that there's an and again, you could easily argue that every single character has something to interact with.
Yeah.
Number one, you have like the tier of like the iconic characters, right? So you have the Legacy Six, obviously. And then you have like your iconic princesses, which by the way, you don't even see many of the princesses unless you go into and you still don't even know who you're going to see when you go to wait to see the princesses in the royal whatever it's called, the royal area. It's not Royal Theater. It's by the Royal Theater. Maybe it is also the Royal Theater. I don't know. Princess Hall. That's what it's called. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I'm thinking because I'm trying to picture it, and it's right next to Royal Theater. Oh, I will say one of my favorite characters that usually I have seen them outside the parade are the stepmother and the stepsisters from Cinderella are very fun.
Yeah.
They're very fun. They embody the character and they're so much fun. Because I think it's like, what can you do outside of like, quoting the character kind of thing in your interactions that are silly and fun? Not to say that Lilo like doesn't add that, but I think that's definitely a consideration.
I get where you're going at this point too, and until the live action movie comes out, the kids these days are not going to interact with Lilo and the Stitch characters. You would still Stitch because Stitch you see still kind of everywhere, but like Jumba, Pleakley, and Lilo, we're 22 years since that movie's been released. So kids these days are not going to even know who they're looking at unless they have watched Lilo and Stitch recently. So they're interact like where it's not so classic. We're like this evil stepsisters.
It's not iconic.
Yeah, they're not as iconic. If they had done that at the time when the movies were out, the TV show was out.
I know they didn't.
Oh, I know they didn't. I 100% know they didn't. I was going to Disney every year.
Sometimes you go and you don't see a character and then they show up.
With the amount of research that we did on these, and this is before internet times too.
I'm just giving you a hard time because you're probably right.
Because everything you needed to know about the parks prior to the cell phones and all that, like they used to send you like a VHS tape. This is new at the parks this year. Like when you'd book your trip before my VHS tapes were destroyed, you'd get a new VHS of like, this is what's happening at the Disney World Park this year. They were fun to watch. You can actually still see them on YouTube.
Well, you can see anything on YouTube these days, including character interactions.
This is true.
And that's a cool thing. Like, I will say I've never okay, so I don't know what character I'd say I haven't seen that it would be nice to see at the parks, but I will say, like, there are some characters that, like, I would like to interact like, I would love to interact with Pooh Bear. I'd love to get a hug from Pooh Bear. I did meet Woody once in Frontierland.
You know, they're usually over by where the Winnie the Pooh ride is all the time.
I know I don't go there. I know he's there. I just don't go there.
Are you missing out on the deliciousness of the snacks that are over there?
Dude, I would be in a world of trouble if I also went there for snacks. Are you kidding me?
Oh,
I already know. I would be in trouble. I gotta limit myself to, like, the current snacks I do have. I'm surprised I don't have diabetes, like
what's a fun character interaction I'd like to see every now and then, and it's kind of weird, is when like the parents are so excited to have their kids see Goofy, and because he's so tall that some kids just get utterly terrified. And like Goofy gets all excited.
Oh, no! Why would you wanna see that more? I don't wanna see a kid terrified from a character at Disneyland.
I feel like it's the one character out of all of them that always gets like either a 50-50, a really good reaction, or like, oh my gosh, I'm terrified of this towering thing.
Do you think it's because he's goofy and he's tall, or because, like, that kid just gets scared of any of the characters that they interact with?
Mainly it's because he's tall. Like he's just towering over them. Like I'm talking like little kids, not, older than about 7 years old.
Do you think they would react the same way to Pluto?
He's a dog. I know Goofy's a dog too, whether you agree with me or not.
I said that.
I know. Pluto will act like a dog.
A dog who has a pet dog.
Yeah. He's not wearing clothes. Like, unless you're, in like special event time of year, which that's one I'm surprised we haven't talked about much is Pluto, because Pluto is always a fun one too.
What about Pluto?
Like he's a fun character action.
Yeah, he interacts pretty well too.
Yeah. I've seen the videos of like where people have their service dogs and then Pluto shows up too, and like the dogs get all excited to see Pluto, as a dog person myself.
That's cute.
Yeah, like the dog goes like there's one, it was like a golden retriever, and has like a Pluto toy in its mouth, and then it sees Pluto and it's like, oh my god, it's like freaking out, wagging its tail, and I'm like, the fact that the dog can recognize this too, hoping it's not just a giant chew toy, mind you. Like it reminds me of that duck video where the duck had, it was the Disneyland promotion where the duck's got the comic book strip of Donald Duck and he's reading it, and then when he flies south,
Oh yeah, that's so cute.
yeah, he gets, and the rainstorm ends, he looks up and there's Donald because they flew to Disneyland. Like I love watching that clip every time.
Donald and Daisy are fun too,
Oh yeah,
especially when they're together. So funny.
yeah.
One time I saw that it was like in one of like the grass areas in between Tomorrowland, like the Matterhorn, and they were there, and it was basically like, you might not get any of this because you're bad at reading the gestures of the non-vocal characters.
100%.
100% Daisy making a big deal that Donald never gave her a ring.
That's so good.
It was so funny.
I think I've seen one where it was Donald hugging Minnie and then Daisy getting like visibly jealous, like coming over and like waddling over.
That's so funny. But in character though.
Yeah, like the fact that they can do that so well and people understand them other than me.
Which, speaking of ducks, the Disneyland ducks are like one of my favorite things ever.
Oh, do we count this as a character interaction? Are they official characters of Disney?
No, because they're not dressed up like a character. They're just the Disneyland ducks. They're the mascots of, and they just like swim around in a little moat.
So I have a fun story from childhood, if you're up for it, about the Disneyland ducks. So the area over by Matterhorn where you can go sit down, that used to be old, the boat ride docks, like everybody grabs their turkey leg there. It was when I was young with my young cousins there, and they were feeding the turkey leg ducks to the the turkey leg ducks to the Disneyland ducks, and I made up this whole story about how like,
Wait. Hang on. They were feeding the turkey leg to the ducks, or they were feeding the turkey leg ducks to the ducks?
I knew I said it. They were feeding the turkey legs to the ducks. Like they were picking off, like they're like 5 and 6 at the time, picking off pieces of the turkey leg and then feeding it to the ducks. And the ducks are eating it. Oh, they love it. Yeah, the Disneyland ducks, they live off of turkey legs, churros, and drop popcorn.
Popcorn's their jam.
Yes.
That's why you don't see popcorn. It's not because they sweep it up. That's part of it, but the other part is the ducks come and eat it.
The Disneyland ducks are the cleaning crew. But it was this whole story about like the fact that they're going to start this cannibalistic war by feeding turkey legs to the ducks. And once the turkeys found out, and how like the ducks and the turkeys of Disneyland are going to go at it. And it was like this whole core memory thing between me and my cousins who lived out here. And like every time we go back, like they'll send me a photo of like the area and the ducks, and like, oh, the Disneyland ducks are still at war with the turkeys and this whole nonsense. Like just the imagination we had as a kid now. I was like, I could never come up with anything. I can't even remember half the story now thinking about it. Just like they've been there. Like even now, like you walk by them, like they're perfect. They are stone cold hard. Like strollers walk by or driving by them. Like I'm afraid to get hit by a stroller. These ducks would just move the stroller out of the way for them. This is my park.
I think we can have like a half episode on the Disneyland ducks.
And the cats. What about, have you seen a lot of the cats that roam around?
No,
No?
I don't think I've ever seen one of the cats.
At least 5 or 10. I know there was one that passed away recently. Like it's a note. Like there's a good following of them.
Of the Disneyland cats. It's very weird. Don't you think Disney culture is kind of weird too? You like really think about it, you're like, this is kind of weird.
Yeah, like it's grown into its own entity. Like you said,
Kind of weird. But speaking of like weird cultish behavior and such, what are your thoughts on like adult interactions with characters and kid versus kid? Because here's my problem. I'm not saying like don't do it, okay? So I see some of these lines for characters, which is number one why I'd never wait in line to see a character. I'm like, no thanks, I'm good. Very few children are in these lines. These Disney adults.
it's so true.
That's a whole other topic that we are definitely gonna get into. Yeah, we know you're a Disney adult anyway, so calm down.
No. I'm not going to judge. What I have been getting very frustrated with is when, and why I think you see some character reduction, is the way people are acting toward the characters now. Like this, for the safety of the characters. Like there was an entire conversation had about the way certain females were acting toward Gaston in Disneyland. I'm sorry, Disney World, where they were, groping him and being very inappropriate.
What? You're at Disney. Did those people get kicked out and banned for life? Because they should.
I don't know about banned for life. I'm pretty sure they were kicked out. Like the fact that they were thinking it was appropriate to touch a character in that way, let alone a person. Like forget the fact that this person is a character right now. The fact that you thought it was appropriate to touch somebody in that way, especially in a public environment like that, in where kids are running around, like that's when I draw the line. Like even like the things I've seen where people are like getting in fights because the handler will say like, okay, the character's got to go.
Yeah.
Yes, they get frustrated because they got to wait in a long line and then the character had to leave. That's for the character safety. You said they have a 45-minute time, and those handlers are very good about their timing. Like as soon as it's done,
They have to be.
and they usually do go up to you in the line and they say,
You're the last person.
yeah, you are the last person. Like even if you're waiting in the line, they're like, you probably will not make it, but we will do our best. So the handlers do a good job.
Character handlers. We did not talk about them. Those poor people.
Yeah, though they probably one of the toughest jobs.
I would not want that job.
They are like on the strict schedule.
No one would like me if I had that job.
Also, they have to understand a communication between the character and them as well, because there are certain hand signals they do. Like if they are in medical trauma or there's something going on, they have like a hand signal to say like SOS, I need help. They have to be aware of not just the character himself, but their entire surroundings. So props to those folks who do a great job of doing that and putting up with some of the rudeness that we've been experiencing.
Because at a minimum, we appreciate you. And to your point, I think adults are ruining Disneyland and character.
Yes.
And I know people will be like, you're adult and then you go to Disneyland and you don't have kids. Yeah, okay. But I'm also not going and being there like I'm not going there and trying to experience Disneyland like as if I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm not playful and childlike and I love the bubbles and stuff like that, but like I'm going and I'm experiencing certain aspects of the park as an adult, as Walt Disney like intended it to.
Yeah, enjoying their presence there.
I've seen some people who I'm like, there are kids in line, like let the kids go in front of you.
Right.
There are people who think they're the equivalent of a child. This kid in their mind thinks this is the real Mickey Mouse.
Right.
Let them go. Because I'm telling you, it's one of those. there, and we'll get this a whole other topic that might even take us more than 2 hours to go through. But
Like, as a regular guest, if you have the opportunity to see that character more often and you see a line of kids, me personally, I'm not going to be the one waiting that line and risk the chance that this kid who is here for maybe the first and only time of his life or her life or their life getting to see that character, me consciously, I could not live with that.
listen, there's a difference if going to Disneyland and you're experiencing it and like maybe characters are your thing and you want to wait in line too. Like I'm not making like crazy judgments. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not saying like, oh, you people are ridiculous that you want like I get it. And I'm not talking to you. Those people who are like, oh, I'm going for the first time or whatever. And I really, want I'm not talking to you specifically.
No, I'm trying to do the Disney point.
I'm not talking to you. But there are certain people who I'm like, okay, you're ridiculous. You're here all the time. And maybe there's like a specific character that you've always wanted to see, and you're like, oh, I've really loved like this make my dream come true to like take a picture with Pluto because I love Pluto. Like, I'm not saying that. Like, actually, when I was at Disney World, it's probably the most character interactions I had, and we did wait in line, but they weren't long lines. Like they operated very differently at Disney World than like Disneyland. And I think that's because there were so many of them. They were at certain areas like in the park, like in their stations, right? And that was the thing. Like there was a certain area that Jasmine and Aladdin were at all times except for whatever hours and you would just go meet them. But then when they're like out on Main Street or, whatever corner, at least the Legacy Six usually are, lines are crazy.
Yeah.
And like they're crazy, crazy long. And it's like, okay, like don't get me wrong. If it's like a rainy day and there's not a long line, like I'm like, hey, let me go have an interaction with Minnie. Like that'll be fun, cool. But if it's like super long lines, and then you have these people who are like, do you really need to wait in line to see Minnie or like have an interaction? Like when there's like all these young little, and then these kids like they can't be in the line that long.
Yeah.
Again, it's not really like a judgment. I don't really care what you do. I just me personally, there are just certain things where I'm like, dude, let the kids do the kid
As adults, it's making the conscious decision to help everybody else's Disney experience be just as magical as it was for us. If you have the opportunity to provide that, like, pay the magic forward and let the kid go first, you probably should do that, at least in my opinion.
Ooh, I like that. Pay the magic.
Pay the magic forward. Like, you got to experience this as a kid. And, a lot of us, like, we're still trying to live that magic too. That is what I think is something that is missing is it's kind of like a little bit of a greed thing. I get that Disney parks are expensive, but let that be your feel good moment of the day or the week or month, whatever it may be. Pay the magic forward and help and a lot of people are good at this. It's not to say it's everybody. It's, you who the onesie twosies out here, but let's help each other out as, Disney enthusiasts, people who like going to Disney. Pay the magic forward. Help the cast members and yourself and these families out here make these Disney days that much more magical for those individuals out there who, just as expensive as is for you, it's expensive for them. And I'll tell you, like, personally, you'll feel better at the end of the day when you do that. And that's what I like to do when I go is like, I know what I know about Disney, and, I can share information through here. We can share information through social media. But I think the best way to do it is like with action itself. And like while you're there, help other people enjoy it just as much as you can, even if that means giving up something you might want to do yourself that day. You might not have seen that character, like got the photo with the character, posted it to social media, whatever your intention may be with it, but you're gonna feel so much better by the end of that night on your drive home or your wherever you're staying, being like, I just made some kid's day or I made some family's day awesome.
Do you think people do it more for the gram than an actual experience?
Yes, but said like when we did the autograph books, it wasn't for like I didn't go home and go to school and like throw it in everybody's face. Like, I mean, I showed people, show and tell, we'll say that.
Look, Goofy signed my autograph book.
Yeah. Like in the cute way. It wasn't like, look how many likes I can get because I saw Goofy or I saw Mickey at Disneyland. And then forget the photo 24 hours later. Like that's kind of the extent of it. Like you're getting it for the memory of like we're kind of living for, the likes and the views and like, oh, look what I did. I think it'll resonate longer if you do it for just the pure enjoyment of it. And like I said, one thing I've learned in life is like if I can pay, I'm gonna keep using that pay that magic forward. We need to like quote that, get that on t-shirts. If you could pay that magic forward, you're going to feel so much better at the end of the day. It's going to be your good deed of the day.
I really like what you said about like what I love about being at the parks is being part of the magic, paying that magic forward. But being part of the magic,
Trademark.
adding to it. You heard it here first, folks. But adding to everyone's experience, you know, I've kind of gone back and forth and always using that term of like being part of the story when you're at Disneyland. Like while you're in the park and being part of the story, and that includes how you're interacting with the other guests. You know, I will say that it was funny. I was doing sometimes I usually do like pool ponderings on my Instagram, and I was there in the summer and I did park bench ponderings because I was at Disneyland, which I think I might make a thing on my Instagram from now. Like every time I go to Disney, like park bench ponderings. I also have a park bench in my backyard, so I could actually do it anytime I want. I digress. One of the thoughts I had is it the people that make the place or the place that makes the people? And the reason I was pondering this is because I just felt this like disconnect with like how people are like it didn't feel like, and it's a comparison for years ago when I would go and how people were. And that might just be a testament to how society is today. To kind of wrap us up with character interactions and tie this together as we have tangented very far off of character interactions. I like to think of it as you were talking, the thing I thought of was shouldn't our interactions be a part of shouldn't aren't we all character interacting? Aren't we all part of that story?
Ooh.
Yes, you have the evil queen and you have the stepsisters and you have Mickey and you have Minnie and you have Goofy and Donald and you have all these characters in there. You get to interact with them too, but like, isn't any interaction you have as if you're interacting with when we were going into Disneyland to be part of the park and part of the story? I don't know. That's how I think. Because I mean, I love like, so I wear my tiara every time I go, and I have people like stare at me, like little kids, not adults. Some adults, actually, a lot of adults compliment my tiara and they're like, where did you get that? And my favorite thing is it's vintage Disney because they don't make the cheap looking things anymore. They make like the expensive looking things that happen to also be more expensive because they're cheaper to make, which is so weird to me. Like the metal tiaras, I don't like.
Mhm.
This is like the cardboardy, like some. I'll have to pull it out. Like I have one hanging in my office, but they'll compliment me. But like little kids will kind of like stare at me a little bit because like I'm wearing a tiara and they're like kind of confused. And like, but just smiling at them, or like even if you're sitting and kids are like kind of just like roaming around, or they're in line and just like smiling at a kid, or like waving them, or just people in general, or like the mom who's like having a really difficult time with her three kids who are tired and cranky, and it's like, just being kind to people. You're supposed to be at the happiest place on earth. The only way that's possible isn't just they have cool things there and the character interact, like look how great the characters treat everyone. It's like we should all be treating each other that way. And so in a sense, like we should all think of ourselves as part of the character interaction at Disneyland. And that's what I gotta say to you people. So
Don't be the evil magic key holder of the story of Disneyland.
that doesn't even sound cool.
Oh, man. I worked on that for like 30 seconds in this conversation.
30
You had something so good. I was like, oh, I got to try to match that.
did not land with me. It might have landed with some of our listeners, but did not land with me. Sorry.
Put it in the comments if you thought it was just as miserable as Amanda thought it was.
I mean, yeah. Well, I think we've said all we need to say about I mean, I'm sure we'll have conversations about other things, but is there anything else that you feel like we didn't really touch on too much when it came to character interactions other than like we want more of them Disneyland. We want more characters. We want certain characters more often. Obviously, it's always going to be a preference for somebody of what characters they want to see more.
Yeah.
I'm more biased towards the classic Disney characters, and maybe that's just because I'm stuck in my own world of nostalgia.
Yeah.
Also, animation was way better back then. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Disney, not a fan of your new stuff.
No, the only other one I wanted to comment was, we talked about like, not inappropriately touching the Disney characters, but I wanted to like add on to the fact like this kid has an Instagram page because this is where I've seen his videos, the family's videos, and it's a special needs kid, and again giving props to back to the props of the characters and the handlers too. So he's a special need kid, and I've seen folks that will comment on it's like, oh, he's touching the characters inappropriately, like the parents should control him. Like in that case, the characters and the handlers are trained to handle them as well, to handle kids with special needs. And the videos, like they're tear jerkers for me. Like the kid will interact with characters he like, it's and repeat characters that as well, and they like know his name too, and it's such a heartfelt interaction, and like don't ruin it for those individuals as well too. Like let the handlers deal with that because they are trained to do that. The characters are trained to handle them as well. I don't know if you've ever seen those videos, but they're very wholesome, very heartfelt, and the fact like they remember him, they are trained to handle children and adults, because it applies to them too. Children and adults with special needs. You don't need to be the social justice warrior saying, oh, that's wrong. Like, they shouldn't be doing that. Like, control your child, da 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 da. Like, they're trained to do that. They're trained to handle it themselves. And if they're not handling it, then that's Disney's problem, the handler or whoever is in control. That was really all I wanted to add on that. Like, in those cases, the handlers know what to do. And even in the cases where it is inappropriate, they do handle it themselves too. You don't need to go commenting on this kid's page saying like you need to control your kid. I think that's just wrong. And I've seen that, and that's why I wanted to bring that part up.
Yeah, good point about the handler. I was just thinking it'd be really cool if I just walked around and I had my own like handler who like push people away. So sorry you can't talk to her. Not that I would want to like the wrong and talk to me. But I would just feel really cool.
The kids are trying to touch the OG vintage tiara, and her handler is just shoving people off.
One time my friend's niece was with us at Disneyland. She's like, "Can I wear your tiara?" And I told her no. So I was like, "That was really rude." She's a kid. And I go, "She's gonna ruin it. I can't get this anywhere. They don't sell this anymore."
No. So for the folks listening out there, we'd like to hear your interactions with characters. What are some special moments you've had with characters? Also, any characters you personally would like to see at the parks, like mine being Powerline. We would love to hear that as well too. So feel free to DM us, message in the comments of our social medias. And I think we're ready to wrap up here, Amanda.
Again, if you're not already, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a fresh episode, and follow us on Instagram at Magic Key Chats. And if you have any topic suggestions or want to join the conversation, feel free to DM us on our Instagram or send us an email at magickeychats@gmail.com. Thanks for joining us on another magical episode of Magic Key Chats. And until next time, may all your dreams come true.